Hello, and thank you for joining me again today on the Finding Hope After Loss podcast. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. If you like the show, please leave a review or rating on Apple or Spotify. It only takes a moment and really helps the show reach more loss and infertility families. Today, I am talking with Lindsay and Emily, who are sisters. Emily lost her daughter Helen, which led her to create the Helen James Foundation. Lindsay currently works for Flexmort, who makes the Cuddle Cot. Together, they are making it a mission to make sure as many lost families as possible have access to a Cuddle Cot to use and are helping lost parents not feel so alone. Hello, everyone. Today, I am here with both Lindsay and Emily, who are sisters. Lindsay, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, my name is Lindsay Lowry, and I'm from Memphis, Tennessee, although I've been living abroad since 2011. And I work for Flexmort that makes the Cuddle Cot. So that's why we're here today to talk about that. And yes, I like traveling. I like going to Pilates. I have a busy lifestyle, and I have one son, Sebastian,
Do you have
who
a
just turned
favorite?
11 years old.
Do you have a favorite place that you've traveled?
I think my favorite place I've been to is the Patagonia. And we went to South Africa 2 years ago, and that was pretty mind blowing. I think
Never
those were
been to
my two
either of
bucket
those.
list trips. Yes, they were fabulous.
Well, thank you for sharing a little bit. Emily, do you mind sharing a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I am Emily Long. I am Lindsay's younger sister. We are a little over 2.5 years apart and grew up in Memphis, of course, as well. And recently moved to Dothan, Alabama about 6 months ago with my family, my husband and my son, George, who is 5. So we have just been getting settled and finding our way and loving, settling into small town life. When we're not here, we like to travel too. We love to go see Lindsay and her son and meet them wherever they are. So we are on the go as well.
We recently did a move too across states. We were from Texas and then we were in Georgia and then back to Texas. And those moves are
Okay.
not fun.
Yeah. Yeah. They're a lot. Definitely.
Did you go through the I just want to get rid of everything I own stage so we don't have to move
Yes.
it?
Yes. We did a lot of purging, a lot of giving away, throwing away. And yes, it's a very good feeling to just like keep what you need.
It definitely is. So
Hmm.
do you mind sharing a little bit about your loss?
Sure, of course. So my husband and I found out I was pregnant in October of 2017 with our first child. And we were fortunate to not have any issues trying to get pregnant that summer. We talked about, let's just go for it and see what happens. I was 34 and thought, it was time, and thankfully got pregnant very easily and had a great pregnancy. Normal, no issues, all of the usual checkups and visits and appointments. And everything was great. We were blissfully unaware that anything would go wrong. We had blood work done at 10 weeks for genetic testing and to find out the sex of the baby. And we just wanted to know with genetic testing, if there were any issues, kind of what we would be dealing with and how we could, work through it. And we found out we were having a little girl. So we started, the name game and picking out our favorite names. So we did have some, pretty good ideas of where we were headed with the name. And yeah, it was all a great pregnancy. Helen is the name we gave our baby, and we named her after she was born. But she was a very active baby. She moved so much. I went on long walks every day with her, and she just felt her move, all of the time. And on a Monday morning, when I was 38 weeks pregnant to the day, I felt her moving that morning. I was working from home, working remotely, and I know that I felt her that day. And then I was out and about running errands, like getting our car clean to get the car seat in the car and just like getting everything ready, and went and got diapers at Target, doing all the things to prep. And then I remember feeling a weird sensation, and I still don't know, like it was just a weird feeling. I don't even know how to describe it, but like a weird feeling of her moving that wasn't a normal feeling. And then I never felt it again. And I don't know if that was anything or not, but that's something that stood out to me. So anyways, later in the evening, I ate and had chocolate and juice and all the things they tell you to do to try to get your baby to move, and nothing happened. So we called the after hours line at my OB's office, and they asked us to come in to the ER. And so we did, and they pulled up a ultrasound machine right there, and there she was, like always, except they told us she was gone and she didn't have a heartbeat anymore. And so, like all of us, who have had a loss, the shock is just, it's very hard to comprehend and to describe, what you're hearing and learning and trying to process what's going on. This was probably like at about 10 o'clock, maybe on Monday night. So they had, my OB come in. Well, they had the on-call OB, and then my OB came in. It's like, we're going to do whatever you want to do. If you want to, be induced, that'll take about 24 hours. You can have a C-section. You can go home and think about it. I'm like, okay, well, I'm not leaving. We're going to, do something. And so we FaceTime Lindsay, and she was in Panama at the time and just kind of stayed on FaceTime with us the whole evening. An OR was available, and they rushed me into, well, not really rushed. They got me ready. It wasn't an emergency, obviously, but they just kind of quickly made it happen and got me into surgery and delivered Helen at 2:52 a.m. on June 5th. And, the nurses said, y'all have a beautiful baby girl. And it just all was very surreal. No crying. The room's pretty silent. They turned on some very nice music for us to kind of just calm, try to calm us down. But it was, horrific, and still is, very much that way. But the hospital where we had Helen was so wonderful. And the nurse who was on staff that night just kind of carried us through the whole evening and during our stay, and just encouraged us to say yes to anything the hospital offered. And that included photography, pictures of Helen, which we were very nervous about, and, grief boxes and blankets and clothes to dress her in, and just all sorts of, care and bereavement offerings for us. And so we just said yes. We kind of did what she told us to do. And ultimately, they kept talking about a cooling device that they could bring into the room so Helen could stay in the room with us. And we just weren't, comprehending what they're talking about. It's 5 a.m. at this point. I'm coming out of surgery pretty out of it, just trying to understand what's going on. And so they had us in a room, and they brought her in, and we just held her and held her and held her. And they kept saying, do you want us to take her? And we said no. And so they finally said, we're just going to set up this cooling device, and it'll be, over in the corner. And that way, when you're not holding her, you can keep her in that device, and it'll preserve her body for a little while so she can be with you guys. And so that's what we did. Our friends and family started pouring in, coming, and this is pre-COVID days. So really there weren't many protocols on visitors. And so every time somebody got to the room, I'm like, she's here. She's in the room with us. Like, I felt like I had to just kind of, give everybody a heads up, because it's a very unique, different situation, and one that none of us were familiar with, and not really sure how to handle. But, it allowed us to have 3 days with her. It allowed Lindsay to fly in from Panama and meet her and hold her, and same with Joel's parents and, extended family and friends, and have that time with her and with us, and really, just get to make some memories and meet her and make it a reality for everybody. I think if they had not had that opportunity, it would have maybe not felt real, that we had a baby. And so it was very important for, I think, all of us to have that time and to accept what happened and try to, heal. So it was such a gift. A family had donated it to the hospital about 1.5 years prior. And none of our, friends and family had heard of a Cuddle Cot at that time. And so we, decided, what can we do to try to help other families going through this? And a family in the room next to us at the hospital also had a loss, and for whatever reason, we're not going to use the Cuddle Cot, but that kind of led to discussions of what if they were, and would we share it, and what would happen. So we, initially just right there in the hospital started fundraising for one more Cuddle Cot. They've got to have one more here, so that way no one's having to share. And thankfully we had such such a great response from friends and family and strangers who just wanted to help and support. And donations kept coming in, and we, kind of took a step back and realized this is bigger than just one cuddle cot, and not just one. One is just as important, but in that moment we realized, we've got so much support and we can do even more than the one. So months later, we decided to form the Helen James Foundation, and we support families who've experienced infant loss, pregnancy loss, and also infertility. And we've been just doing a number of different things to try to educate and inform and support and help others. Lindsay's been right there alongside us and now is working for the company who makes Cuddle Cot, which is just a full circle moment. But it's obviously very personal to her, and she can share her own personal story. And of course, I'll let her speak to that. But when she's out visiting with hospitals, so it was so impactful for our family and friends, and such a gift and something that may not be for everybody, but it was for us. So the more awareness we can raise about it and share with people so they know to ask for it if they want it, and just raise awareness about loss in general, and just keeping it in the conversation and trying to help people feel comfortable talking about it and know that they're not alone.
How many Cuddle Cots have you helped raise funds for?
That's a great question. Lindsay, are we around like 20 maybe?
I think Emily's at 21 now, I believe.
21.
And
okay.
they also just donated our first 2 cuddle blankets for older children. One is in Phoenix at the Ryan House. It's a palliative care home. And the second one is going to the PICU unit at Lurie Children's Hospital in Chicago. Chicago's close and home for us. My son was born there. So Emily donated, and Joel donated one at Northwestern there where my son was born. And then obviously at Lurie Children's across the street.
That's amazing.
Yeah, she also did our first one in Mexico outside of Cancun. And she is in the middle of shipping right now one to Chile. A lost mom contacted us about 2 months ago and had heard about this. And there's only one in the country asking, please. And it's now, because of this one donation, opening up the conversation of possibly having it as part of standardization of care in the entire country, being reviewed by the Ministry of Health now.
That is amazing.
It's a huge step from what Emily's just telling you to now having a mom call us in Chile, to Emily doing the donation, and now another mom calling us. So, things have shifted big time in the last 6 years, I have to say.
Oh yeah. I mean, we've gone from not, hearing back from hospitals, struggling to find hospitals who are willing to accept the donation, because along with that becomes training, and ongoing education. And it's not just drop it off at the front door and hope they take it. There's a lot of red tape at some of these hospitals and getting their board to approve. And now, Lindsay's joined Cuddle Cot and has been instrumental with their team in, getting these in hospitals. And so now Lindsay's every week, like, can you make a donation? We got somebody. And it's just incredible. Like where Joel and I were 6 years ago trying to get donations accepted, to now it's like not people necessarily beating down the doors, but sometimes it kind of feels like that. And we're just really, as difficult as it is that these are needed, we're so thankful that hospitals are opening up to the idea and asking for it. It's been really great. We've also helped establish some grief libraries at hospitals and have done fundraisers for book donations. We have an Amazon book wish list, and we have a library at St. Thomas Midtown in Nashville, Tennessee, where Helen was born. And we have one at another hospital outside of Nashville. So we've been trying to grow that too and help just support families and siblings and, provide some resources there at the hospital for them.
So Lindsay, I know we've talked about this before, but do you want to explain a little bit about how you got a job with this company?
Yeah, so I have a background in finance and money management trading, and I've been a stay-at-home mom the last 9 years, and I had been looking for jobs and looking on LinkedIn. And obviously this conversation and topic isn't something that had really been on LinkedIn discussed, in just the death world in general, child loss, infant loss. And I had been liking things for Flexmort and for the Cuddle Cot, and was able to connect with the managing director asking me how I was involved and how I was supporting their business, that it was kind of, there were only a few people liking the company at the time. This was back in like December and January this year. And I told him who my sister was and that she donates to CuddleCots. And obviously they knew who the Helen James Foundation was or what it was. And if they were open to having a US team, I would love to come work for them. I was really wanting to get involved. And in the state of Tennessee, as a family member, I can't sit on the board and I can only just volunteer. And it looked like a great opportunity and the timing was perfect. So I joined a couple weeks later and here we are. So the last year has been very eye-opening for me. I had only seen from Emily's perspective, and Joel's perspective, the loss, even being in the room with my niece flying there. I still am not sure I totally comprehended what happened and the trauma and impact that it has, for years to come. And being in this job, I thought was just going to be about putting more cuddle cots in hospitals, whether they're in NICUs or mother baby or labor and delivery. But it really opened up this whole world to me, meeting people like you and meeting other foundations and lost parents that are trying to shake things up and raise awareness, not only for whether you have cuddle cots or bereavement boxes or tote bags, but just the conversation in general and trying to make it, normalized. And so part of my job this year, outside of just getting the devices into hospitals, has been trying to support all these groups and see, where they need help. I think a lot of people feel really alone in their space sometimes, or they're just sitting in their city or their state and they don't realize the impact that they're having and that they could have. And sometimes people have a loss and they want to start from scratch and they don't realize how to find these groups online. Who are they? And so I really wanted this year to kind of build a hub at Cuddle Cot and at Flexmort for all these lost parents so they don't feel alone, or if they want to try to participate, they can also join a group and not have to do something, from scratch. Some people don't have the time if they have other careers, living children, and other responsibilities. So it's just really opened my eyes, I think, to understand what Emily and Joel went through. I think I have a better understanding this year than I did before, even though I was right there and I stayed with them, I think about 2 weeks afterwards. I just now have a different lens and have kind of stepped out of it and able to have a different perspective. And so now it's been kind of wonderful to see on social media, not just on Facebook and Instagram, but on LinkedIn, where the conversation is now happening like in a professional manner and getting in front of decision makers. Because, we have all these people on Instagram that are lost parents that are raising money and making changes, but we really need changes to happen at a corporate level and at a government level, a state level. And that was something that I learned this year. So it's just been extremely eye-opening, motivating. There's so many great things that are happening. And there's also a lot of more work that can continue to happen. But like Emily said, I think the conversation has shifted in terms of trying to place the cuddle cots. Now we have, for different reasons across the country, people needing more than one and seeing multiple losses at the same time and never wanting to be in a position where they could only offer it to one family. And like we live now, people move, across the country or out of the country, and people are not near their family like we used to be. And so a lot of time people just need days to travel outside of just having the time for memory making. Lots of times the hospitals don't even have a morgue on the labor and delivery unit. So they're using the cuddle cot as a morgue until they can decide what to do, with the child. And it gives everyone time. So it's very exciting what's happening in terms of people feeling safe to talk and connecting with each other. We've seen so much collaboration this year. We had our first online conference at Cuddle Cot with some amazing speakers. And now that was for the US. And yesterday we had a conference call with our first donor in Canada, and we're going to have a Canadian conference in the spring with a lot of decision makers there. So it's exciting and I'm really happy to be a part of it. And like Emily said, it's a full circle moment. It's difficult at times to be cheering and excited about my job because Emily and Joel had to have a sacrifice to get us to this place. And so sometimes, it's hard to justify and be happy about it because we had to lose, Helen to all get here, but she also gave us a gift that we could never have imagined, which is touching so many lives. And it's not even just in the US, we're working with people, all over the world now. We just placed one at a military base in Japan, and they just called us saying that there are multiple naval bases that are interested as well. So it's just the reach that we're having is incredible. And it's been really mind blowing. And, I'm just really grateful to be a part of it.
It's one of those things where you're like, oh, I'm so glad that I'm able to do this, but also at the same time, so sad that there's such a need for it.
Yes, it's sad that my niece isn't here, and that's how we got here. But then I'm also like, can't believe that she gave us this gift in life, to give back. We could have never imagined. I always asked my sister, what would we be doing today if we didn't have this? I don't know what our life would look like. And I wouldn't meet all these incredible people. I was traveling in Ohio, and this lady came up and said to me, this is just the worst club to be in, but man, it has the best members ever. And I said, you're right. Like, I've met some of the most incredible people, including you, and I just can't imagine if they weren't a part of my world every day. So I don't know, but it's sad that we have the need for it, but I'm really grateful that people are having the tools now, because I hear now from people when they ask me what I do for a job, they will say, oh, 13 years ago, 20 years ago, XYZ happened to me. And, I had none of these resources or tools, or I never saw my child after the delivery, or I felt shame talking about it. And I feel like even in 6 years, that Emily and I can have much more normal conversations at a dinner table, out for drinks, and not feel like kind of weirded out or embarrassed that that's not like proper dinner talk, or table talk, that should be in a certain space. And so I just hope we can continue to normalize that, whether it's a miscarriage or you can't have kids or whatever, everyone's circumstances.
Yeah, I also lost Jasmine 6 years ago, and we did not have a cuddle cot at the hospital at that time. And that's something that I definitely wish had been available. And just like you were saying, I know that when we did donate one to the hospital later, and it was a lot of work to to get it there. And they didn't have the US division at the time, so it came from the UK, and yeah, it was hard. So I'm glad that it's becoming an easier process.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. Now we just had a foundation, give us money for about 33 that we need to place. And, if we'd said that a couple of years ago, that may have felt challenging to do that. And now, because of the military that's opening up and bases, it'll probably be pretty fast to, place them. And I think a lot of people hadn't even thought about that sector. A lot of people can't just fly home if something happens or fly to them. There are protocols and things like that. So, yeah, the world is changing in the grief space, I think, for the better. So hopefully, Emily and I can continue to work together, and also with other organizations, that are looking to change the laws, looking for funding and so forth, because I think a lot of people don't really know what to do besides maybe make a donation or donate towards their hospital. And so that's why we've really been trying to bring people together to say, call your senators, ask what's happening in your state, the Stillbirth Prevention Act that was passed, just all sorts of things that are going on, just to try to put research out there. Emily had mentioned it, and she can touch on it, but about, possible like blood clotting issues that can happen for women. That was something, that she wasn't aware of when she was pregnant with Helen. And so I think there's just a lot of things that we're trying to do to empower women to be proactive about asking questions about your own health. I think a lot of people now, unfortunately, are getting pregnant. Maybe they didn't know they had some things going on with their body that they should have addressed. That wasn't anything with fertility, just taking care, of your health. And so I just hope on this journey that we can get people, to be asking questions before they get pregnant and then during their pregnancy. I think sometimes people are kind of scared to challenge the system when they go to the doctor, to push back to the doctor or the nurse. And, I think in this journey we've learned you have to be, an advocate for yourself, no matter what health issue you have, and to ask questions and not be scared to, and don't wait until, you think something's wrong. Everybody's body is so different. And sometimes I think we're all kind of treated the same when you go to your checkups. And, sometimes checkups should be done differently based on, prior circumstances and issues and health challenges you have. So we have great groups like Count the Kicks that are trying to get people on apps just to look for things. So there's a lot of great stuff happening. And I just hope we can kind of get to the masses about preventative measures for people to know about.
So, Emily, I'm curious, right after your loss, did you find any groups that were helpful to you, or any particular resources like right after your loss before you started your foundation?
I was introduced to a few moms through Instagram who had experienced loss as well, and kind of just spent time like direct messaging with them, and or, you know, they gave me their phone number and just would text and kind of just share in the loss and, you know, share their story. And that was just so helpful to connect with other moms, you know, who could relate and understand and, you know, just kind of sit with me through it and, you know, not expect anything from me and understand the hard days and the sad days and the dark days and why we just really couldn't function. And then some of them talked about things they had done to really try to help, you know, the healing process, and whether it was a foundation or, you know, a fundraiser. I don't know that I didn't attend any loss groups. I kind of shied away from groups. I think I was better one-on-one at that time. So that's really kind of where I spent my time, was just meeting other moms kind of, you know, individually and talking to them and talking about their journey and how they got to where they were after it happened, you know, and how they kept going. And we just continued to have so much support that we just, you know, knew that we had to do something and couldn't just make this a meaningless loss. Like, how can we give this purpose and keep Helen's memory alive?
How did you come up with her name?
So Lindsay and our grandmother, her name is Helen, and I've always loved her name. It has been a very big part of our lives. Helped us, you know, help our parents raise us. And we spent a lot of time with her and our other grandparents. They were just very involved and very close with them. And I always loved her name. Her middle name is James, which is my husband's, one of his middle names. He has two, and it's one of his middle names. And then also James is very big in his family. His dad, both of his grandfathers, so a lot of James in his family. But Joel's grandmother, was close with her, and her name was Penelope. And Joel really wanted Penelope. That was on our list. That was on our refrigerator, and everybody would come and, like, you know, give it a check mark or write their name down. So it was between Helen and Penelope, but I insisted on Helen. And so when we have a now 5-year-old little boy, we were trying to decide we wanted to name him. And Joel had talked about James, and I was like, that's Helen's name. She's Helen James. You know, that's her name. So Joel's grandmother was Penelope George. So we named him George. So at least Penelope got some representation.
I love that, though. And I love the name.
Mm-hmm.
Did they tell you, I don't remember if you already mentioned this, but did they explain, like, why your loss happened, or was it unknown?
It was unknown. We did so much blood work and so much testing and had an autopsy. There was nothing significant on that. There was no cord issue, no blood clot in the placenta. You know, they looked for any and everything, and there was nothing. Later, a few months later, I had more blood work done, and Lindsay alluded to a blood clotting issue. And there was something that came up about, like, that I could have a tendency to have a blood clotting issue, but they don't know if that, you know, was related to Helen or not. There's no way to really prove it. But when I did get pregnant again with George, I saw a high-risk doctor in Memphis at the time. He put me on Lovenox blood thinners due to the blood clotting issue. And that was, you know, really the differentiator between that pregnancy and the one with Helen. George got here just fine. Now, we did deliver him at 37 weeks. You know, our doctor did, and us, we did not want to go to 38. And so we delivered at 37 weeks. And George and Helen both weighed the same. They were both 7'7", which was pretty neat. So, and I've met a lot of other moms who've experienced either stillbirth or miscarriage, and have ended up finding out after the fact about a blood clotting issue, and have also been put on blood shots or blood thinner shots, and have had no issues in future pregnancies. So that's something I've been talking about more and more, just the education around it, you know, and if asking your doctor just to run that blood panel and just see if you have it, because it's not part of the usual, you know, makeup of what they run. And I've asked other doctors and some friends who are OBGYNs, like, why don't you just run it and see, like, what if this could have prevented so many losses, and it's usually the same answer. Well, it's just not part of it until you have a stillbirth and then we'll check. And it's like, that seems so backwards. Why? So
just add the
like
test in.
yeah, I don't, and if insurance doesn't cover it, I would imagine a blood test isn't that much, like it's worth it. And, so anybody that I know that it's like trying to get pregnant, talking about it, I'm like, please just ask your OB about it, talk to your OB about it. And like Lindsay talked about, earlier, like being an advocate for yourself. Like I've learned that with several health issues I've had, like you just have to advocate for yourself, and your body, and like what's right for you. And so just insist on things like that if you feel led to, because it could change your life.
So this is a question either of you can answer, but if somebody was interested in trying to donate a Cuddle Cot, how would they go about that process?
So it depends. People have different ways. So you may have someone like you, when you and your family donated the Cuddle Cot, in Frisco, you wanted it there because perhaps that's where you delivered and so forth. So it depends. Some people have a special place where they want it in memory of their child or a friend, or they may just call and say, we've raised X amount of money. Can you find the place for us where you think it will be needed and utilized? Because a lot of times people get nervous that they will donate it, and if there's not a team behind it doing training and so forth, they want to make sure it's not, stored in a closet and not utilized. So we have it both ways. So recently, a lot more have been for me placing them because I'm on the phone all day talking to hospitals, and a lot of people before really just had labor and delivery in mind. And I feel like the NICU got overlooked. And in the last 3 months, that has been our largest request, has been from Texas, has been our largest market this year. And also because it's such a large state, obviously. But the NICU unit has really picked up. And then children's hospitals have NICUs, which I don't think people realize. When children are born and maybe they have to have open heart surgery or something's wrong, they're sent to the children's hospital. And so that area has picked up. So it just kind of depends. We have some people we have one group, the Born Sleeping Foundation in California. They just did their 21st, that family, and they have gone to every single donation in person. And the last several ones, they've taken their kids. And then some people like Erin Maroon is our largest Cuddle Cot donor with Ashley's Embrace. She's donated over 300. So obviously it's challenging for her to be, at every donation. She tries to do, a virtual one, and a lot of those families will come to her and they will donate money to Ashley's Embrace, and then she will work to place them. Because of our relationship this year, having people on the ground in the US, I've been able to connect with these groups and work with them. So Emily's foundation, the Helen James Foundation, is partnered with Texas Health there in Dallas. And so that gave us a great relationship due to Emily and Joel. They attended the donor dinner last year. So then I donated my own personal funds, went to the dinner this year, and then ended up bringing Erin from Ashley's Embrace and Dr. Bullock from Miles Mission with me. And then Erin's foundation donated 5 more in the Dallas-Fort Worth area last month. So it's just has different paths and meanings based on what's happening. And obviously, I think now we're getting requests from hospitals versus what Emily was talking about and you were talking about before, where people were trying to place them. Now, because we're attending conventions and so forth, we become more of a name, like a known name in the nursing world. So they're coming to us saying, this is so amazing. Unfortunately, we may need 2 or 3 more due to what's going on. But I'm just glad that, we have so many families raising money. Obviously, the goal long term we would hope is that as CuddleCot works towards looking at standardization of care, that it could be part of the routine at hospitals. But right now, the majority of them are donated, and we're hoping that that narrative, can shift. There are some hospitals that, because they already had 1 or 2 donated, they're now asking to purchase it. But I hope, in the long run, that can just be something that is required, to be on property at NICU, mother, baby, LND, and available to people. It's a little frustrating, I think, that parents find out after the fact that it was out there and their hospital didn't have one. And it's not, it's not expensive. The basic price of the product is about $1,800. A lot of times people come to me and say, it must be $5, 10, $15,000. It must be so expensive that the hospital doesn't have it and can't afford it. And, that's not the case. The largest price we have is $2,700 for it with warranty and so forth. So I don't think, I think people think that's a big point of contention, and it shouldn't be. That's just not that much in the medical arena, but it's not medical equipment, and it's not a requirement. It's not saving lives. So we're just trying to change that as well.
So Emily, with your foundation, then how do you find the hospitals that you're going to go donate to? Like, do you work with Lindsay, or do you have people come to you?
So a little bit of both. We initially started with where we delivered Helen and worked within their network of hospitals throughout the state of Tennessee. And then we slowly started branching out to other hospitals, like in Memphis, where we're from, and then in Chicago, where Lindsay's son was born. And then, we had a couple, I feel like a few, like one in Florida just found us on our website and sent in a message via the website asking. And same with some outside of Nashville and Somerville. So we get requests through the website. But now that Lindsay has taken on this role at Flexmort, we've kind of moved more into her coming to us with opportunities and doing it that way. But we definitely get those messages that come in through the website and social media and read those and respond to those. So that's always a great way. But currently, I think that the most recent donations have been through Lindsay. And then we're able to do that through a fundraiser we have, which is our biggest annual fundraiser, a golf tournament every fall. And that's in Memphis. And all of our friends and family come out and support. And we just have a big support system from our hometown. And that's really where we raise the most funds to be able to do this. And then we do smaller things throughout the year. In years past, we've done some fundraising on Giving Tuesday, and recently a couple who used Helen's Cuddle Cot for one of their twins' babies for the twin who survived. She just had her 1-year birthday party, and they, in lieu of gifts, asked for donations to the foundation. So, we get donations through different ways, but that was really something just very meaningful and so special that they did that. But our golf tournament is typically our biggest fundraiser.
And do you have like a website or social media where people can connect with your foundation if they want to?
Yes, HelenJamesFoundation.org is our website, and there is a chat feature there where users can message us directly, and then also Instagram at Helen James Foundation, as well as Facebook is at Helen James Foundation. So you can keep up with happenings there on what we've got going on and what we've been involved in, and then also message there for just questions and anything anybody wants to know.
So does either of you have anything else that you want to share or add?
No, I just think it's been so interesting this year too, like with Emily asking if they have to find the donation. Now I get such heartfelt messages from nurses telling me, I just found out about this. What can you do to help? And so it's nice to call my sister so she can see, the impact that it's having and that it's really going to be used and why they need it. And so it's just, I don't know, it's like very heartwarming to see the staff that's out there and people really going above and beyond. Emily still talks to her nurse. We were, able to text her when I was coming to Nashville to see if we could message her. And I don't think sometimes, we always talk about the lost families, but I've also in this job gotten to see how the Cuddle Cot has been beneficial for the nursing staff. They have to walk in there and look at a family that just lost their child who, like Emily said, may still be heavily medicated, that doesn't even know what they're talking about, and have to take the baby from their arms to go to the morgue. And it's very traumatic also on the nursing staff to have to go in there, have those conversations, go back and forth. The morgue may not even be anywhere near where they're working. And then they have to walk into the room, with a family with a live baby and turn it upside down and be very happy and cheering 5 minutes later. And so I've seen a lot and have a lot more empathy and understanding, for the support that nurses need across the country. That they are now, I know why people are saying there's a lot of turnover and burnout because, they're up against a wall and they don't really learn about loss in nursing school. And that's something that has been on my radar this year that I hope we can raise awareness for. Is now that we're getting more cuddle cots in hospitals kind of as a standard, I really hope that they can go into nursing schools, because loss is not really discussed in nursing school from what I hear on the street. Obviously, I haven't been to nursing school, but I hear it's minimal time spent. And I wish and hope that we could get these put into nursing schools across the country so that a nurse isn't having to learn how to set up the device and present it to a family in the middle of a loss happening. Many times I hear from the staff that they've never seen a child like that before. They've never had to talk to a lost family, and they're in the middle of, a shift or maybe at the end of their shift, exhausted, and they're having to come up with the vocabulary. So that's something that we've been working on at the company, is putting together free modules for the nurses about language to use with families and how to present it, or the family can get on our website and hear a testimonial from a family, why they used it, what was the purpose behind it, because everyone has different rationales, obviously, of why they use it. So I just, hope on this journey too, people can see how hard nurses are working, and also the nurses can realize that that little moment in time where they went, above and beyond really may change somebody's mental health trajectory of, keeping a job or keeping their marriage or not thinking about suicide. I mean, I don't think people realize like long-term effects that can happen to people, and these little moments in time, having those photographs or getting that extra hug from the nurse really might change somebody's life. You hold on to those memories. It's such a dark time, and you're trying to hold on to anything positive, and those nurses are providing that. And it's just been really incredible to meet some of these nurses across the country and see the work that they're doing, and just like the passion, that they have. I was in New Orleans a couple of weeks ago. Well, now I guess that was in the end of October for the funeral directors conference, and was visiting some hospitals, and there were two nurses in the L&D unit who were just so motivated. And I said, why do you go above and beyond? And the two nurses sat in the bereavement closet because they didn't want to talk out loud. And both of them had lost children that were 2 and 5 years old. And they said, like, we've been there, we know what it is. And we just don't want anyone to ever, feel the way we did and not feel supported. And so it's just incredible to hear people's stories and why they do what they do, whether it's from their own loss or just out of the kindness of their heart. But there are just so many great people out there. I feel like in today's world, you always hear about people complaining and the negative things, but there's also some really, really incredible people, in the country that are trying to make a difference and just doing it, out of the kindness of their heart.
So is there anything else that y'all would like to add?
I don't think so. I mean, mainly just we are, appreciative of you inviting us to join you on your podcast and just help with awareness of what, the Helen James Foundation is doing. We're always looking to grow and meet new people and new groups and just help support however we can. And Lindsay's been so helpful in helping, getting us introduced and connected. It's not my everyday, day to day. And so Lindsay has just been great at pulling me in and saying, we're doing this, we're doing this. So I'm just so glad to have met you and to be a part of your podcast and have an opportunity to share our story and what we've got going on. Thank you so much.
Well, and I just love everything you guys are doing. I love that you are able to work together on it, and you complement each other.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
Well,
it's been fun. I mean,
yeah.
it's hard to say that it's fun, but it is, because we've gone to so many things. Emily and I were able to attend in Houston in May. There's a group called the Mothers of Held Angels, or MOHA. And so we went on behalf of the Helen James Foundation, and then Miles Mission came with us. And it's just been really cool to see how we can collaborate and go travel together and, raise awareness, because that, I think, is what has to happen, is that you can't just stay in your corner forever. We've got to start working together if we're going to have real change, and I keep hoping when our smaller kids are older that they're not having the same conversation, that it's a kind of a normalized process. When something happens in hospitals, people aren't feeling shame talking about it. So anything that Emily and I can always do together, we just want to show that, we're united, and there's a lot of great things and great people out there, and we just all have to find each other. And thankfully in this job, I've been able to find a lot of cool people like you. And I think my sister will come to Dallas hopefully next month, so you can meet her, and that, things like that. It'd be great.
I know you are very good at networking with people, and you're always like, wait, I know a person, or I'll connect with someone and they'll be like, oh, I just met Lindsay. I was like, I know Lindsay.
Yeah, I mean,
that.
we had one group that I worked with, and we had a conference call, and I shared all of their information across my channels. And the next morning, they called me and said, the amount of boxes that we donated last year, we got that request all in one night last night.
Wow.
So
Wow.
I see the power of connecting people. And then we had that Cuddle Cot donation go to Japan. And then I saw Liz from Push Pregnancy, and she has Aaliyah in Action. She had her boxes from Aaliyah in Action sent to the same base. So things are happening and they work, you know. So if you meet the right people, things happen as they should always.
Well, I want to thank you guys for both coming on today.
Yes,
Thank
thank
you
you
so
for having
much.
us. And I'm so happy I got to see you this summer. And obviously, I'm in Texas a lot for work. So Emily and I would love to see you again when we're back there next year in person.
Yeah,
Definitely.
definitely. I would love that. Thank you both so much for coming on today. As I mentioned, we didn't have a Cuddle Cot when Jasmine was born. It's something I definitely wish we did have access to because I know for sure we would have utilized it. I'm just grateful that there are people like you that are working to make sure lost families have this vital piece of equipment available. I'm glad hospitals are seeing the value and seeing it as more than just a piece of equipment to shove in the closet somewhere. It's something that gives the gift of time to those who have lost a baby. It's the only time we will ever have with them, so we definitely deserve to have as much of it as possible. I'm curious, did you have a Cuddle Cot when you had your loss? I'm interested to hear your responses, so you can email me your answer at sarah@journeyforjasmine.com or message me on any of my social media at journeyforjasmine. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. If you like the show, please leave a review or rating on Apple or Spotify. It only takes a moment and really helps the show reach more loss and infertility families. Thank you so much for tuning in, and remember, we are all in this together.